You know, as a fan of any band that we love, a lineup change is one of those things that will always have us questioning, do we want to continue listening to any new material moving forward after that change? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. So the band Korn formed back in 1993 with the 5 original members being James Schaefer, Monkey, Reginald Arvizu, Fieldy, Brian Welch, Head, Jonathan Davis, and the man on the drums to round out the 5-piece, David Silvera. So before Korn ever was even in existence, Monkey, Fieldy, and Silvera had another band. It went by the name LAPD, which stood for Love and Peace, Dude. Not long after that, Brian Head Welch and Jonathan Davis would come in and join the band, and they would eventually change their name to Korn. You know, and I find it kind of cool the way they came up with the name Korn. So it was kind of a play on Toys R Us. Some of the guys actually worked at Toys R Us, and if you remember the old Toys R Us logo, the R in Toys R Us was in reverse, just like in Korn. And Jonathan Davis is the one that actually came up with the Korn logo. Now, I find that pretty cool because most stories, you go back, there's always a humble beginning and there's always a story behind everything. And the fact that that name spawned from something like that. I mean, imagine if you worked at Petco or Pizza Hut or Jack in the Box. You know, you start a band and you do some type of play on that. Now, if it goes nowhere, you'll be like the large percentile of things that never happened for a lot of people. But if it does, it's kind of a cool story to fall back on and tell people how you came up with the name of something. So after Korn formed in 1993, I firmly believe what I'm about to say. I mean, I strongly believe this. That between the years of 1994 and 1999, those are the years that Korn were at their prime and absolutely made a name for themselves in the industry. I can stand here today and tell you that Korn is one of those bands from my youth that came out in the prime of their popularity, and they're still around today. And I've got to see their whole progression. So that's just cool that it's one of those bands that has stood the test of time, and I can say I was there from the beginning. I can always fall back and look at bands like Queen or AC/DC or Van Halen and appreciate and admire everything they've done. I can fall back, listen to their whole catalog, make my own interpretation, and absolutely fall in love with it. But I can't say I was there from the beginning, which is not much, but it is something cool. But with Korn, I can absolutely say that. Really quick, before we move forward, can you please do me a huge favor? Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Those are 2 things you can do for me. They're absolutely free, and those are really the only 2 things you need to do for me that will help this channel grow. Also, continue watching the videos that I put out, and please share them with your friends and family. But besides that, do those 2 things for me, and we're all good. Let's continue the video. So like I said, those years, that time span was absolutely huge for Korn. Now, the 3 albums they released in that time span were their self-titled album in 1994, their 1996 album, Life is Peachy, and their 1998 album, Follow the Leader. Those first 2 albums by Korn would really define nu metal and the genre, but the 1998 album, Follow the Leader, this is the album that took the mainstream by storm. I mean, this put Korn on another level, and it is an absolutely amazing album. This would help the guys kind of cement themselves, and they would be the face of nu metal, one of the godfathers of nu metal as far as the sound goes as we know it or what we think of it. Their sound and their style were nu metal. Now, Korn's explosion in this time frame were some of the biggest reasons why we would eventually get bands like Cold Chamber and Slipknot, eventually even Linkin Park. Also Limp Bizkit. Now, Limp Bizkit has a lot that they owe to the band Korn for getting to the heights they did, and that's really how they got their big start, really thanks to Korn. Now, before the guys would end up dropping their 4th album in 1999, the album Issues, these guys were pretty much staples in the music industry, and they pretty much were all like their own character in the band. I mean, when you look at the band Korn, you looked at all 5 guys, and it was like their own unique character, each one of them. But David Silvera always seemed like the one that stood out as somewhat of the odd man out, different than the others. And maybe it was the hair, maybe it was the look, but there was something about him that always made him stand out. But there was one thing that David Silvera could absolutely fall back on. He was a badass drummer. Since 1993 in the formation of Korn, David Silvera was a staple. When you think of Korn and you think of the drummer, you think of David Silvera. At least I do, and I guarantee a vast majority of you are the same way. After the release of their 1999 album, Issues, they would drop 3 more albums with David behind the drum kit. They would drop 2002's Untouchables, 2003's Take a Look in the Mirror, and 2005's See You on the Other Side. that 2005 album would be the last one that we would see David Silvera on the drum kit for the band Korn. 2006, it was said that David Silvera was leaving the band Korn to take a break, a hiatus. And that was really all that it was thought to be, and nothing much else was thought of that. The next year in 2007, there was an interview that Jonathan Davis was doing where he was talking about Silvera, and he started to say things like he was losing his technique, it was gone, and he'd show up to rehearsals, he just wasn't the same guy, wasn't the same vibe or energy. And after hearing stuff like that, then you kind of wonder, especially as a fan of Korn, like, okay, you're expecting the guy to come back any day now, and you're hearing stuff like this, and he's not back yet. So then it kind of makes you start to have the wheels turn in your head to think, okay, what's really going on here? Because they're not going to tell you much. It's not just the band doesn't want to say what's going on. People like to keep their private business private. But these executives and these producers in the music industry, managers, they're going to also tell you to say as little as possible. So when you get nuggets like that from Jonathan Davis, there's probably more going on behind the scenes than what's actually being told to you. So after that small bit of criticism from that 2007 interview from Jonathan Davis, it was always assumed and understood that Silvera was still the drummer for the band Korn. But, as 7 years goes by and Silvera still hasn't made his return to the band, then you really got to start to wonder, okay, maybe at first, it is what it is, it's a break. But when 7 years go by and the man hasn't returned, you gotta wonder, what the hell is going on? In 2010, the bassist from Korn, Fieldy, he wrote a book, and the book was entitled Got the Life. Now, in this book, there were some parts in there where he pretty much took some shots at Silvera. Now, when Silvera got wind of this, and he did because of some fan questions that he had got online, he did what pretty much everybody does these days. He took to social media and he started taking some shots at his former bandmates as well. Another thing that David Silvera was very adamant about and very public and vocal about was that the band Korn was nothing like it used to be. Ever since the album Issues came out, he said that the band was not the same as it was. The guys' sound had changed. It didn't seem like the passion was there. They just weren't the same thing that they were when they got started in the early days. And he was pretty sure that whether people wanted to admit it or not, the band had pretty much just turned into the Jonathan Davis show. When 2015 rolled around, there was some legal issues that were going to start brewing because David Silvera filed a lawsuit against his former band. And pretty much, he had said that when he left the band, it was only supposed to be temporary. And all these years had gone by, he still had nothing to do with the band. Now, these guys had released 4 more albums after Silvera's exit from the band. So he said he had never given up his stake, and he believed he was entitled to some money. And I got to be honest, not knowing all the legal ramifications and how those things work, I would almost kind of say I would agree with the guy. But then again, I don't know what was going on. You would think that these high music industry executives can put some contracts together with some fine print that, put you in a bad spot if you don't read it and you're signing stuff. But honestly, if you're still part of the band, technically, even if you're not with them, you got to feel like there's something owed to you, and David Silvera definitely did at this point. So once all this stuff kind of started to die down, at least as far as what the public was hearing about it, Silvera wanted to rejoin the band, but the guys, they didn't want him back. The manager didn't want him back. And eventually, it was said that a settlement was reached outside of court, but this would require Silvera to forfeit any future earnings that the band made. Any future earnings that the band made moving forward. And at that point, if you're Silvera, you're probably like, damn, you know what? I've known these guys for a long time. We've been through a lot. We created some great music. We were pretty much defined the early generation of nu metal. But after that, shit, it might really be over. So this year, 2023, marks the 30th anniversary of Korn being a band. I mean, 30 years is a long damn time. And it blows my mind because I remember the early 2000s, Korn was pretty much in their prime still. And you had all these other bands coming out, and it was like they were so fresh, and now they're the elder statesmen in the genre, in the music industry. And when I was younger, it was like, okay, Led Zeppelin is old. Well, now Led Zeppelin's really freaking old, and bands like Korn are old. But it's just the way of the world. I mean, as I'm getting older, you see, and I'm sure you all see it as well, that everything eventually ends, and life goes on, and things happen. But the 30th anniversary of a band, you would think that Silvera would have a chance to play some shows or even just be involved somehow in a tour. And right now, as it stands, it don't seem like anything like that's going to happen. But I think in the end, what it was is, this band's like a family. And David Silvera, Brian had Welch, he had issues. He was a bad meth addict, and he left the band for a while. Monkeys left the band for a while. There have been different guys that have left the bands for different reasons at different times. Just Silvera happens to be the one with the, most lengthy absence from the band. And it seemed like that one might be one that doesn't end. But as a Korn fan, and I'm sure the rest of you out there would agree with me, I hope one day they can squash that and Silvera can be back behind the drums playing some Korn in front of a live crowd, and we can just have fun listening to the original lineup at least one more time. As a fan, like I said in the beginning, you want to see that original lineup. When things change, you just hope you can still enjoy it, and if you can, that's great. But there's always going to be part of you that wants the original. What was there when it started, that's the original, that's what you want. But anyway, David Silvera is a hell of a drummer. Korn's a hell of a band. Just wish the guys could squash it, get it over with, and let's ride that horse one more time, baby. But again, thank you for watching. Until next time, go out there, take care of yourself, take care of your family, do something great, go for something big. Till next time, I'm out.